In the heart of New York City, where skyscrapers pierced the clouds and dreams were as vast as the horizon, there lived a man who had it all but touched nothing. Alexander Drake, the billionaire CEO of Drake Industries, was known not just for his empire but also for an unusual reputation: his refusal to touch any woman. This wasn't some eccentric quirk or media fabrication. It was real, documented, and whispered about in every corner of high society. Women threw themselves at him, hoping to be the one to break through his icy exterior, but none succeeded. He was untouchable, both literally and figuratively. Yet, what no one saw coming was that this enigmatic man would choose someone so ordinary, so unexpected, a delivery girl named Mia Thompson, to become his wife. And when he did, their world turned upside down. Mia was far from the glamorous socialites who frequented Alexander's elite circles. She worked long hours delivering packages across the city, her life a patchwork of small victories and quiet struggles. Her days began before sunrise and often ended well after sunset. Yet, she carried herself with a grace that belied her circumstances. It wasn't beauty alone that set her apart, it was something deeper. Something Alexander noticed the first time their paths crossed. That day, rain poured relentlessly over Manhattan, turning streets into rivers and sidewalks into slippery hazards. As fate would have it, Mia arrived at Drake Tower drenched to the bone, clutching a package meant for its reclusive owner. When Alexander opened the door himself, a rare occurrence, he didn't expect to feel anything. But looking into her warm brown eyes, framed by damp strands of hair, something stirred within him, something he couldn't ignore. Their initial meeting was brief, almost mundane, but it left an impression neither could shake off. For Mia, it was surreal to stand face to face with the man whose name dominated headlines daily. To her surprise, he wasn't cold or dismissive like the rumors suggested. Instead, he spoke softly, thanked her sincerely, and even offered her a towel to dry off. Small gestures, yes, but they spoke volumes. Meanwhile, Alexander found himself replaying the encounter in his mind long after she'd left. There was something about her sincerity, her unguarded presence, that intrigued him. In a world filled with people wearing masks, Mia seemed refreshingly authentic. Over the following weeks, their interactions became more frequent, not because Mia sought them out, but because Alexander requested her specifically whenever deliveries were made to his address. Each visit added another layer to the mystery surrounding him, while simultaneously pulling her closer into his orbit. As their connection deepened, whispers among Drake Tower staff grew louder. Why was the untouchable CEO suddenly taking interest in a delivery girl? Some dismissed it as mere curiosity, others speculated on ulterior motives, but no one dared ask outright. Alexander, however, paid little heed to the gossip. His focus remained fixed on Mia, though he struggled to understand why. Was it her resilience, her kindness, or perhaps the way she looked at him, not with awe or greed, but with genuine warmth? Whatever it was, it gnawed at him, forcing him to confront emotions he'd buried long ago. Meanwhile, Mia wrestled with her own confusion. The man everyone deemed unreachable treated her with respect, kindness, and a level of attention she hadn't experienced before, yet she knew better than to let herself get carried away. After all, how could someone like him ever see someone like her as more than a fleeting fascination? The turning point came unexpectedly. During a particularly chaotic evening, a sudden snowstorm paralyzed the city, leaving Mia stranded without transportation. Desperate to complete her last delivery, a fragile item, destined for none other than Alexander Drake, she braved the freezing temperatures on foot. By the time she reached his penthouse, her fingers were numb, her cheeks flushed red, and her body trembling from exhaustion. Alexander opened the door to find her shivering, clutching the package tightly against her chest. Without hesitation, he ushered her inside, wrapping her in a thick blanket and offering her hot tea. As they sat together in silence, watching snowflakes dance outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, something shifted between them. Words weren't needed to convey the depth of emotion passing between them. For the first time, Alexander allowed himself to imagine a future where touching someone didn't feel like crossing an insurmountable barrier. And for Mia, hope flickered alive in her heart, a dangerous, intoxicating hope. But their budding bond wasn't without challenges. Society's judgment loomed large, ready to pounce on any misstep. Friends warned Mia about getting too close to a man of Alexander's stature, reminding her of the inevitable fallout should things go wrong. Meanwhile, Alexander faced pressure from his board members and peers, who questioned his judgment and urged him to prioritize business over personal distractions. Yet neither backed down. If anything, their resolve strengthened with each obstacle thrown their way. Alexander began showering Mia with gifts, not extravagant ones meant to impress, but thoughtful tokens that showed he truly saw her. A custom-made coat to keep her warm during deliveries, tickets to a concert featuring her favorite band, even a small library stocked with books she'd once mentioned wanting to read. These acts of kindness weren't just spoiling her materially, they were chipping away at the walls she'd built around her heart, making room for trust and affection to grow. Despite these moments of tenderness, tension simmered beneath the surface. Alexander's past remained a shadowy enigma, his reasons for avoiding physical contact still unclear. Mia tried not to dwell on it, focusing instead on the present and the joy they shared. But questions lingered, nagging at the edges of her mind. What secrets was he hiding? Could she really build a life with someone who held such a fundamental part of himself back? Then there was the matter of timing. Their relationship moved quickly, almost recklessly, fueled by emotions neither fully understood. One moment, they were laughing together over shared meals. The next, they were tiptoeing around unspoken fears and uncertainties. It was exhilarating and terrifying all at once, like standing on the edge of a cliff, unsure whether to jump or retreat. Just when it seemed they might find solid ground, a revelation threatened to upend everything. During a charity gala hosted by Drake Industries, cameras flashed relentlessly, capturing every move Alexander and Mia made together. Speculation ran rampant, painting Mia as a gold-digging opportunist and Alexander as a fool, blinded by infatuation. The backlash hit hard, forcing them to confront harsh realities about fame, power dynamics, and societal expectations. For Mia, the scrutiny felt suffocating, making her question whether she was strong enough to endure life under such relentless public scrutiny. And for Alexander, protecting her became both a priority and a burden one he wasn't sure he could shoulder alone. With tensions mounting and doubts creeping in, the couple reached a crossroads. Would they weather the storm together, forging a love strong enough to defy convention, or would the weight of their differences tear them apart? As the night wore on, Alexander pulled Mia aside, his expression unreadable. "We need to talk," he said quietly, leading her to a secluded balcony overlooking the glittering cityscape. The air hung heavy with anticipation, each heartbeat echoing like thunder. Whatever he was about to say would change everything for better or worse. Standing on the balcony, the cool night breeze brushing against her skin, Mia felt her heart pounding in her chest. Alexander's voice was calm, but there was an undertone of urgency she hadn't heard before. "Mia," he began, his piercing blue eyes locking onto hers. "There's something you need to know about me, something I've kept hidden for years." His words sent a shiver down her spine, not because they were ominous, but because she could sense the weight behind them. Whatever it wasn't just another secret. It was the key to understanding the man who had turned her world upside down. Alexander took a deep breath, as if steeling himself for what came next. "When I was younger," he started, his gaze drifting toward the city lights, "I went through something that changed me. My family, we weren't always wealthy. Before Drake Industries became what it is today, we struggled. My father worked tirelessly, but he made enemies along the way, people who didn't take kindly to his success. One night, when I was 16, those enemies came after us. They broke into our home," and he paused, swallowing hard, his jaw tightening. "They hurt my mother in front of me. She survived, but I couldn't save her from the trauma. After that, I vowed never to let anyone close enough to be used against me." Mia listened intently, her heart breaking for the boy he once was and the man he had become. It explained so much: the walls he built around himself, his refusal to touch women, even his obsession with control. For someone like Alexander, intimacy wasn't just complicated, it was dangerous. To open himself up meant risking vulnerability, and vulnerability meant risking loss. But now, here he was, standing beside her, choosing to share this deeply personal part of himself. It was both terrifying and beautiful, a testament to how much he trusted her. "But why me?" Mia asked softly, her voice trembling. "Why would you risk everything for me?" Her question hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. Alexander looked at her then, really looked at her, as though seeing her for the first time all over again. "Because you're different," he said simply. "You don't want anything from me except what I'm willing to give. You see past the money, the power, the facade. And somehow, despite everything, you make me believe that maybe, just maybe, I can have more than this hollow existence." His confession stirred emotions within Mia that she hadn't fully processed yet. On one hand, she felt honored that he trusted her enough to let her in. On the other, she couldn't ignore the enormity of what being with him entailed. The media scrutiny, the societal judgment, the constant pressure, it was overwhelming. Yet, beneath all the chaos, there was a spark between them that refused to dim. She cared for him deeply, perhaps even loved him. But love alone wouldn't shield them from the storm brewing outside. Meanwhile, the world beyond their private moment continued to spin out of control. Tabloids painted increasingly scathing portraits of Mia, labeling her everything from a naive ingenue to a manipulative climber. Social media buzzed with memes and hashtags mocking their relationship, while anonymous commenters dissected every detail of their lives. Even some of Alexander's closest allies began distancing themselves, fearing association with the controversy. The board of Drake Industries called an emergency meeting, demanding answers about how his personal life might impact the company's future. Pressure mounted from all sides, testing the limits of their resolve. Amidst the chaos, a subplot unfolded, involving Mia's estranged brother, Ryan, who reappeared unexpectedly after years of silence. Once a promising athlete, Ryan had fallen into a downward spiral of gambling debts and reckless behavior. When he learned about Mia's connection to Alexander Drake, his motives became murky. At first, he seemed genuinely happy for her, offering apologies for past mistakes and expressing hope for reconciliation. But soon, subtle hints emerged that suggested otherwise. A suspicious phone call here, a cryptic text message there. It was clear Ryan had ulterior motives, though whether driven by greed or desperation remained unclear. The tension reached its peak during a charity auction hosted by Drake Industries, where Alexander announced a massive donation to support underprivileged youth, a cause close to Mia's heart. As cameras flashed and applause filled the room, Ryan slipped backstage, confronting Mia in a quiet corridor. "You think you're better than me now?" he sneered, his tone laced with bitterness. "Living the high life while I rot in debt. If it weren't for your billionaire boyfriend, you'd still be delivering packages like the rest of us." His words stung, not because they were true, but because they echoed doubts Mia herself had wrestled with. Was she losing herself in this whirlwind romance? Had she forgotten where she came from? Before Mia could respond, Alexander appeared, having sensed something was wrong. The look he gave Ryan was icy, commanding respect without uttering a word. "Leave her alone," he said firmly, stepping between them. For a brief moment, it seemed like Ryan might back down, but instead, he smirked, pulling out his phone. "Fine," he said, tapping the screen. "But maybe the world should know exactly who you've been cozying up with." With that, he walked away, leaving Mia and Alexander staring at each other in stunned silence. Back inside the ballroom, whispers began spreading like wildfire. Someone leaked photos of Mia from her delivery days, juxtaposed with images of her dressed elegantly beside Alexander. Captions mocked her transformation, calling her a modern Cinderella and questioning the authenticity of her rise. The room buzzed with murmurs, guests exchanging knowing glances as reporters swarmed the entrance. Alexander tried to shield Mia from the commotion, guiding her toward a private exit, but the damage was done. The spotlight had shifted from admiration to disdain, casting doubt on everything they had built together. As they escaped into the night, retreating to the safety of Alexander's penthouse, Mia felt the weight of the evening pressing down on her. Tears streamed down her face as she collapsed onto the couch, overwhelmed by the betrayal and scrutiny. "Maybe this isn't worth it," she whispered, her voice cracking. "Maybe we're fighting a battle we can't win." Alexander knelt beside her, taking her hands in his, a rare gesture that spoke volumes. "Don't say that," he urged, his voice thick with emotion. "We'll figure this out, together. I won't let anyone tear us apart, not Ryan, not the press, not anyone." Yet, even as he spoke those reassuring words, uncertainty lingered in the air. Outside, the storm raged on, mirroring the turmoil within. Ryan's threat loomed large, a ticking time bomb waiting to explode. What secrets did he hold? How far was he willing to go to destroy what Mia and Alexander had fought so hard to build? And most importantly, could their love withstand the trials ahead, or would the pressures of fame, family, and fear finally break them? With each passing moment, the stakes grew higher, drawing them closer to a confrontation neither could avoid. The climax approached rapidly, promises hanging precariously in the balance. In the end, only one thing was certain: nothing would ever be the same again. The next morning, the city woke to a bombshell revelation. Ryan had leaked not just photos but a series of incriminating emails between him and an anonymous source, alleging that Alexander Drake had manipulated Mia into their relationship for publicity. The story spread like wildfire, painting Alexander as a calculating opportunist and Mia as either a victim or a willing participant in his scheme. For hours, Mia sat glued to her phone, watching the narrative spiral out of control. Her hands trembled as she scrolled through hateful comments and accusations, each one chipping away at her resolve. Meanwhile, Alexander locked himself in his office, fielding calls from furious board members and PR teams scrambling to contain the damage. But amidst the chaos, something unexpected happened. A video surfaced online, unloaded anonymously, that told a different story. It was footage from security cameras inside Drake Tower, showing Ryan sneaking around after the charity auction. More damning still were snippets of audio where he admitted to fabricating evidence against Alexander, boasting about how much money he planned to make off the scandal. The truth came crashing down like a tidal wave, exposing Ryan's greed and vindictiveness for all to see. Within hours, public opinion began to shift. While skepticism remained, many started questioning whether Mia and Alexander were truly villains or victims caught in someone else's web of deceit. Confronted with undeniable proof, Ryan cracked under pressure. He confessed everything during a live interview, tearfully admitting that he'd acted out of jealousy and desperation. "I wanted what they had," he admitted, his voice breaking. "Not the money or fame, but the connection. Seeing Mia happy made me realize how empty my life had become, and instead of fixing myself, I tried to destroy her." His apology was raw and unpolished, leaving viewers divided. Some pitied him, others dismissed him as irredeemable. But for Mia, it was closure. As painful as it was to hear her brother's betrayal laid bare, she finally understood the depth of his pain and her own strength in surviving it. With Ryan's confession putting an end to the media frenzy, Mia and Alexander found themselves alone in his penthouse once again. The silence between them felt heavier now, charged with unspoken emotions. "Do you regret this?" Mia asked quietly, staring out at the skyline. "Being with me, I mean, all of this. It's been so messy." Alexander moved closer, placing a hand on her shoulder, a gesture that still felt monumental coming from him. "Messy doesn't scare me anymore," he replied. "What scares me is losing you. You've shown me what it means to trust, to love, to be human again. If we can get through this, we can get through anything." Their journey wasn't without scars though. The events of the past weeks had forced both of them to confront insecurities they'd buried deep inside. For Alexander, it meant learning to let go of the fear that had defined his life for so long. For Mia, it meant finding balance between staying true to herself and embracing the opportunities life presented. Together, they decided to step back from the relentless spotlight, focusing instead on building a future grounded in authenticity. Rather than appearances, Alexander scaled back his involvement in Drake Industries, delegating responsibilities to trusted executives while pursuing philanthropic projects closer to his heart. Mia, meanwhile, used her newfound platform to advocate for causes she cared about, inspiring countless others with her resilience and kindness. As months passed, their bond only grew stronger. They married in a quiet ceremony surrounded by close friends and family, free from the prying eyes of the world. It wasn't perfect, in fact, it was far from it, but perfection wasn't what they sought. What mattered most was the love they shared, forged in adversity and strengthened by sacrifice. On their wedding day, Alexander held Mia's hand without hesitation, a simple act that spoke volumes about how far he'd come. For Mia, it was proof that even the hardest battles could lead to beautiful victories. Looking back, the story of Alexander Drake and Mia Thompson became more than just a tale of romance. It was a reminder of the power of vulnerability, forgiveness, and second chances. Theirs was a love born not in fairy tales, but in reality, tested by fire and tempered into something extraordinary. And while the whispers of society never fully faded, they no longer mattered. Because in the end, it wasn't about pleasing everyone, it was about finding peace within themselves and each other. Years later, when asked about their journey, Mia would smile softly and say, "Love isn't about avoiding storms. It's about weathering them together," and Alexander, standing beside her, would nod in agreement, knowing full well how true those words were. Their story wasn't perfect, but it was theirs, and sometimes that was enough.